Hey, it's Haley. Welcome to the Haley Show here on Auntie YouTube channel. My name, of course, is Haley, and I'm the Canadian crafter behind the Foiled Plan here on YouTube. Now, on my own YouTube channel, I like to dabble in all different types of crafting, so just know that every episode of Hey, it's Haley on Auntie Tay's channel is going to be different from the last. We might be foiling, working on sublimation projects, learning how to design things using Cricut or Silhouette, creating upcycled DIYs, working with resin, learning how to emboss. The list goes on, and I'm so excited to share all these fun crafty things with you. In today's project, we're going to do a bit of design work in Cricut Design Space. We're going to do some foiling as well as use the Cricut to actually cut our project. Because we're using multiple machines today, I would consider this an intermediate project, but I still have full faith that you can do it. So let's get started. To create this spooky mini banner, first I need some black patterns so that I can foil them. On AuntieTay.com, I'm going to select the Styles tab and Foiling. From here, I scroll through and find some pattern options that I think will work best. If you're unsure of how to foil, I have a whole series on Auntie Tay's YouTube channel that you can access directly from the foiling page. I strongly encourage you to check that out if you've never done foiling before or have never even heard of it. I settled on the black striped image because it was giving me Beetlejuice vibes, and then I also downloaded the all black image. Once downloaded, I made sure to print those images on my monochromatic laser printer. You absolutely need to have a laser printer to print these images for foiling. Then I opened up Cricut Design Space. I clicked to pass through all of the pop-ups and then started a new project. Now this is where we're going to do a little bit of design work in Cricut Design Space, and you don't have to have any sort of membership to do this. We're just using the free features. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a Shapes button. So click on that and you're going to insert a square just by simply clicking on it. Now we're going to unlock the aspect ratio for the size, and we're going to adjust the height to make it a little bit longer. We're going to do the same thing again by adding in that upside down triangle, unlocking that size aspect ratio, and we're going to keep the width the same as that rectangle, but we're going to make the height even smaller, so it's going to look quite tiny. Now we want to align these two, so I'm just going to drag that over below the rectangle, hold down the Shift key and also select the rectangle, then we're going to hit Align and Center Horizontally. Now for the next part of this to work, I need both shapes to be touching. So I'm going to zoom in slightly, click on that triangle, and use my arrow keys on my keyboard to move it up. Then I'm going to select both shapes and click the Weld button, and it should create a new image. You'll see on your Layers menu on the right-hand side, there's now just one layer rather than two images. Now I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to insert a text box. And I'm just going to change that banner piece to be white just so I can see the text a little bit easier. And I'm going to scroll until I find something in my system fonts that I think will work for this. In this case, I went with a font called Luminary. Now, even though I do plan to work with these letters individually, I also like to spell out the full word to make sure it's going to look okay before I move forward. Now, I am going to be making this a double layer banner, so I'm going to duplicate this banner piece, and I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio and change the size slightly to make it smaller so that you'll still be able to see that base banner piece underneath these smaller pieces. I am a very visual person, so partway through I do like to slide that piece over on top just to make sure it's looking okay and make any more adjustments that might be necessary. Not that this part really matters because they're going to cut separately anyways, but I do select both of the pieces and center align them just so I can see them perfectly. Now we're going to work with the letters, so we're going to select the full word and ungroup the letters. Now I'm going to just work with the S, and I actually don't need the rest of the letters anymore, so I'm just going to select all of them and delete them. Now I'm going to zoom in so I have a better idea of what I'm working with, and I'm going to make adjustments to that letter S so that it fits properly in that banner piece. Now I do promise there's a method to my madness as to why I deleted the rest of the letters in the first place when I'm going to need them again. Once I have my placement kind of right on that first banner piece, I'm going to select all 3 layers and then duplicate them for each letter of the word spooky, with the exception of, I'm going to leave a space for the second letter O, because once I have the first O how I want it, then I'll just duplicate that piece again. I try and work as quickly or as efficiently as possible. So if I can just copy and paste or duplicate pieces, then that's how I will do it. So now I'm going to move on to the letter P. And this is when I realized, okay, there is a piece on that letter P that is kind of dangling off to the side, and that's not really going to work for this image. So I'm going to pull that letter P out to the bottom, and then I am going to insert another square, and then I'm going to select both the P and the square, and I'm going to hit the slice button because I want to get rid of that little piece that's kind of dangling off to the side. And then I'll delete the square and the pieces that it has cut off because I don't need them anymore. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to work with in that banner piece. Sometimes you have to get a little bit creative to make things work for your projects. Then I just moved on and did the same thing with the letter O. Once I had it where I wanted it, then I just duplicated the whole banner piece for the letter O, moved on to the K, and finished off with the Y. As I moved forward, I noticed that I wanted to change some sizing even on my initial pieces. So I did a little bit of adjusting, and once I got it how I liked it, we were ready to move on to the next step, which is a whole bunch of slicing. Now we click the letter S and hold down your shift key to also click on the first banner piece right below that, and we hit the slice button. So now we can pull out that original letter S, the S that it has cut out of that piece, and remove them. So we do the same thing with the rest of the letters, and this is not touching that base large banner piece whatsoever. So if you want to move those out of the way just visually so you can see what you're doing, that is totally fine. At this point in time, I realized, I'm also going to need some holes in these base banner pieces to feed my little fishing line through so that they can hang and kind of dangle. So on that first piece, I added 2 circles. Then I selected both circles and I welded them together so they were one solid image, because you can only use the slice tool if you have 2 layers selected. Any more than that, it won't work. So the circles are on one layer. I selected that, then selected the base banner piece and hit the slice tool. Then I was able to remove all of those circle pieces, and now they will be cutouts, so they will cut on the Cricut machine. And so that I didn't have to do all those circle work pieces again, I deleted the rest of the base pieces and just copied and pasted the rest of those base banner pieces. Then I moved them all to the back so that I could see again what my banner was going to look like. Then I selected all of the top layer banner pieces with the letters on them and I hid them. I selected Make It, and I'm going to use On the Mat for this project. I changed the paper size on the mat to be 8.5 by 11 because that's the size of the striped piece that I printed on my laser printer. Then we hit Continue and we select our base material, which is cardstock. So I searched for cardstock for intricate cuts and we select that, and then we load and we're ready to cut. Once it's finished cutting, we always flip the mat over and we peel the mat away from the material that we're working with. I did notice there were some spots where it didn't cut all the way through, so I just set that off to the side and I'll use an X-Acto knife or something similar because I don't want to pull them out and then tear the page. Then I use this black toner sheet that I had printed. This is one of the patterns that is available in that foiling section on the Auntie website. And I just trimmed off the excess. Now I didn't print this as an 8.5 by 11 because I didn't need that much. I just used the, I believe it was 5 by 7, and then I trimmed off the margins around that, loaded it on the mat the same way, and then we cut the top layer pieces. So these are the ones that will have the letters cut out of them. You'll notice the letters did stay in, which I actually found helpful later on when I was gluing the pieces all together. But if you are using a newer blade or perhaps a different blade setting, you may have your letters cut all the way through. Now it's time to move on to foiling. So I've got my Mink machine set up and I've got it on heat setting level 4. Now I'm using deco foil, which is also available on shopauntietay.com. If you'd like to save a little bit of money at checkout, you can use my code, which is the foiled plan. And there's lots of different colors to choose from. I'm using the black and the orange. To use the least amount of foil as possible, keep your pieces in the transfer folder as close together as you can. Once it comes out the other side, you'll be able to do your foil peel and the pieces are ready to assemble. So the letter pieces, I just used a glue stick to stick those on top of these pieces. And I tried to keep them in the same spot so I would reference the first piece when gluing the next piece. And once all the individual pieces were glued together, it's time to actually move on to the assembly of the banner. So for this, I used wooden dowels that were from Dollarama. I used 2 of them. And then we used some fishing line here that's clear. I believe it's actually for making jewelry, so maybe it's just called like jewelry string. I don't know. But I used that. That's also from the dollar store. And I fed that through each of the circle parts at the top of each of the individual banner pieces. Then I tied them at the top of the pieces of dowel, and to secure that, I just added a little drop of hot glue, and I repeated the same thing on the other side. Now, if you don't like the color of the dowel, you could always paint a portion of that any color you like. I say a portion because the section that actually goes into a cake, if that's what you're using this for, you wouldn't really want that having paint on it because it's not food safe. And this is what the final product looks like. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Hey, it's Hailey here on Auntie Tay's YouTube channel. As I mentioned, this is more of an intermediate project considering we were doing some design work in Cricut Design Space as well as using a Cricut and a Mink machine. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments section below and we'll try and help you out as best we can. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Auntie Tay's YouTube channel so you don't miss out on future episodes of Hey, it's Hailey. And if you'd like to hang out with me in the meantime, you can find me over on my channel, which is The Foiled Plan, and all of my social media links will be in the description box below. I hope you have a super awesome day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye!